On today's episode of Faces of Florence, we feature a conversation with Sarah Sweeney. Sarah is a transplant to the area who brings a fresh perspective on life and work here in Florence. She's a part of the team at the care house of the Pee Dee, doing an extremely difficult job, but one that's important, necessary, and rewarding for her and those she gets to help.
Hey, welcome. We're so glad you found us. Radio Free is a 24-hour Christian mixed radio station broadcasting right here out of Florence, South Carolina. So when you're driving around town, remember to tune it in to 92.5. And if you're outside of the Florence area, you can listen 24 hours a day at radiofree.cc.
Sarah Sweeney, welcome to Radio Free.
Thank you.
Sarah Sweeney, you are the outreach coordinator for the care house. And we're excited to have you here. The care house is doing the kind of work that it's hard to describe how important it is, you know? And so we're excited to learn about this, about what you guys do. But first, tell me a little bit about you.
Okay. Well, like you said, my name is Sarah, and I've been at the care house for about a year now. I've been in the world of child abuse for about 2.5 years. And
How does one, not to interrupt you, but how does one get into the world of child abuse?
Well, I think, to be honest with you, I just always had a passion for people.
Okay.
I worked in sales before, and then kind of realized that I was actually pretty good at fundraising, and I wanted to kind of work with something that was bigger than me, than just selling in my commission check. So I switched to the world of nonprofit and truly loved it. And when I found the care house, I knew I found a home. I mean, this is probably, and I tell people all the time, this is the best job I've ever had. And they're like, well, how do you work with child abuse and say this is the best job?
Right.
But people are incredible. And so, a little bit about me is I'm not originally from Florence either. So when I moved here 8 years ago, I fell in love with the Pee Dee region. There is something about the people here, and my husband always says that Florence gets in your blood, and it really does. And I don't know, there's something like, even when the hurricanes were happening and people were helping each other out, you know, and there's nowhere like Florence. There's nobody like Florentines and the Pee Dee region. I just love it.
That's fascinating. You know, we were talking about that a little bit before we got on the air. Tell us where you're from.
Okay, so I'm originally from New Orleans, and I grew up there. I was raised there, and you know, it's a great place to live.
Yeah, sure.
The food's amazing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm never leaving Florence, unless I retire up into the mountains somewhere. But I'll be in the Pee Dee region forever.
Well, you definitely sound like you're in the right seat on the bus here. So you got into the world of child abuse. Tell me, what was your introduction to that type of nonprofit fundraising stuff?
Sure. Well, I worked for another organization that did domestic violence, sexual assault, and child abuse, and then I had a child, and I realized that as much passion as I have for the world of sexual abuse and domestic violence, because I teach self-defense on the side, so I've always worked with those kind of women who are incredibly strong, and I just love them.
Wait, you teach self-defense?
I do.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
We have to get into that too.
Yeah, I definitely. It's one of my things that I do is like kind of as a volunteer, because if I can change one life and save one life just by teaching self-defense, that's one of the things that I do.
That's great.
But when I had a child, I decided that every child needed to be loved as much as mine is, and I found this amazing organization in the care house of the Pee Dee, and I haven't looked back since.
Well, let's dig in a little bit to the specifics of the care house. I'm going to be honest with you. When I've seen the care house logo for years before I had any idea of what you guys did over there. Can you give us an overview?
Yeah, absolutely. So Care House of the Pee Dee is a child advocacy center, and that's basically what we do. We advocate for children. Now, that model started about in the 1980s when it was actually in Huntsville, Alabama, which is where our national headquarters is today. And so law enforcement DSS kind of realized that children were going to hospitals telling their story of abuse, so that's scary. Then they're going to the police station where the guy has handcuffs on one hip and gun on the other.
Right.
That's scary. And then that's re-traumatizing the child to make them tell their story multiple times. We can go to one place and do it. And that's what we do. We do these things called forensic interviews and forensic medical exams. So if there's any physical or sexual abuse, DSS or law enforcement calls us and says, hey, we need to schedule a forensic interview. So we do this non-leading conversation between a child and the interviewer. And it's basically telling their story. But then we also have that therapeutic side. So we also do therapy for the children as well. So we do a wide range of things, but all of it is for the help, hope, and healing of children.
Well, it's a dark thing, a dark subject matter for sure. And I would love to ask you a little bit about how you process through that. It seems like that'd be kind of heavy to take home at the end of every day.
Sure. Well, first of all, I work with amazing women. We have a great staff, and so we bounce a lot of things off each other. There's nobody that really, even though we're kind of in this COVID pattern right now. Right now, we split our team up into 2 teams, so every other week somebody's in the office. We never stop seeing children. We never have to close our doors. And even people that are on my off weeks are checking on me. They're making sure I'm doing okay, because we're all kind of pitching and doing more than we normally would.
Yeah.
But so that's part of it. But then also, people that work with child abuse and that like people like DSS and law enforcement, they truly care about these kids. And so knowing like I have a whole team behind me cares about this child that they've never met before, that is amazing to me. And because of this COVID pattern, I was asked to kind of step up and help do the medical exams, which I thought would be really hard for me. But no, I mean, I'm learning a lot, and then I get to hold these kids' hands and walk them through these medical exams. So yeah, it's hard, but at the same time, people that are involved in child abuse are incredible people, and that's what makes it easy.
And you're seeing these children get healed, or at least move in that direction, and so that's got to be incredibly rewarding. Well, let's talk about that, without obviously getting too graphic or anything. Whatever you want to share is fine, but let's kind of walk our viewers through what it would look like. So there's a report of child abuse, and someone calls the authorities. I guess that's the first step.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then the authorities get with you guys.
Right. So let's say there is an allegation of abuse. So maybe there's an allegation of sexual abuse by maybe a stepfather or something like that, or a physical abuse by a mom. So law enforcement is called in. There's an incident report that's made. Then law enforcement gets in touch with DSS. Either law enforcement or DSS calls us to schedule that interview. And they tell us what the allegations are. And so, of course, like I said, allegations, so it's nothing is, proven till proven guilty type of thing. All we're doing, so we schedule them in, they come in, and if there is a medical needed, we will schedule that as well.
So that's their first interaction after the allegation's made is with you guys? Mm-hmm. They don't
they'll talk to DSS and law enforcement. They'll have a caseworker through DSS. Okay. But when they come in, we want them to feel like they're family.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, we treat them like they are part of who, they're one of my kids.
Sure.
And even if I'm in marketing or sitting up front or doing whatever, they're my child. And so then they do a forensic interview. And like I said, that forensic interview is just a non-leading conversation. One of the things I always explain about forensic interviews is like, you as an adult, if you get into a car accident, for example, and the police officer says to you, is it the red car or the blue car that hit you? You as an adult know that there's a third option. That green car was actually the one that hit me and it drove away. Children don't always understand they have that third option, so it's always non-leading. So if it's going to be something like, if a child says in the interview, he hit me, we're going to say, was it mom, dad, or someone else that hit you? So it's never leading.
Yeah.
So the interview is filmed, and the hope is that we can use that as in place of testimony. Because unfortunately, in the state of South Carolina, children 12 and over typically have to testify against their abuser. And that's where we can come in. We can be an advocate for the child and testify on their behalf, or they can use a forensic interview. And that forensic interview can last for anywhere from half an hour to 2 hours. It all depends on how much the child talks. And then we only want them to tell it one time. So the interviewer is wonderful so that they repeat everything back. So the child says, he hit me. So they'll say, oh, he hit you. Tell me all about that. And so it's just a narrative. And then the medical exam is if there's physical or sexual abuse, and we need to make sure the well-being of the child. So the great thing about our partnership with Hope Health is we have Dr. Michael Foxworth, he's the forensic medical examiner, and he is forensically trained. So not any pediatrician can do the medical exams he does. All of his stuff is fact-finding, evidence-based type stuff. So that is just a head-to-toe exam of the child. If there's any bruising or anything like that, he'll take a picture because, of course, he sees a lot of children, and that way they never have to go through that exam again.
Yeah.
And so that's the forensic and investigative piece of it. And then, of course, we'll have children get referred to us for therapy often.
So let's talk a little bit about that then, because, I mean, we're talking trauma of the highest order here, and you guys sound like you've really got it worked out how to bring them into that first stage, figure out what's going on, how to stop it, but then they need to be healed on the backside of all that. Tell me a little bit how that looks.
Well, so a forensic interviewer and a therapist are typically, they wear the same hat. So the same person, but no forensic interviewer can ever be the child's therapist because the forensic interview is fact-finding, it's evidence, it's things like that, where the therapy is the well-being, the healing of the child. So,
right.
The therapy is so fascinating for children, especially trauma-based therapy. And so all of our therapy, we offer 5 different types of therapy, and they're all what they call evidence-based. And that just means that it's backed by science. Science has shown that this kind of stuff works. And a lot of it's trauma-focused. So we're working on building what they call a trauma narrative. So, the child will go through and work through all these coping skills and all these things that the therapists teach them. And then at the end of the therapy session, they will do something called a trauma narrative. So they will write out their story of their trauma and read it to like a trusted adult. So most of the time a parent. And we make a big deal out of that. We have cake and we have whatever snacks the kid wants. It's a big celebration because that's behind them now. They never have to address that again if they don't want to.
Wow.
And so, I'm just proud to be a part of an organization that's literally working towards breaking that cycle and helping these kids. And to see some of these children from beginning of therapy to the end has been wonderful, has been so incredible.
Well, to say that it's important to this area would be an understatement, but that's part of what this video series is about, is talking about this area. You established that you love this area, but tell me a little bit about why the care house is important to the Pee Dee in particular. What's happening in this area that you guys are combating against?
Well, okay, so one of the things that I like to talk about is, so in 2018, we saw 484 forensic interviews. So that's 484 different children that were seen. In 2019, that number increased to 707. That's not more children getting abused. That's more children getting help. And that's why we're so important.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I know like right now this COVID stuff is happening across the nation. Child advocacy centers had to close. We never closed. We never closed a single day. And that is something I'm very proud of. Last year, between January and August, we saw about 360 children. And this year, of course, 328. So that number has gone down because children didn't have a place to tell. Like during quarantine, things were happening to them. They weren't with teachers or extended family that they would normally disclose to. But that just shows how important we are, that our numbers didn't drop even a whole lot during COVID. Yeah. And so children here are getting help. I mean, we have all these great relationships with these law enforcement agencies and DSS agencies across the whole PD. So that's almost 9 counties that we're helping. How incredible is that? That I get to work with children from all over the region and then know that their lives being changed because of the people that I work with.
That's incredible. And there is, like you said, something in the water here. And there's a community kind of posture that it seems like to me that everyone's sort of pointing in the same direction in things like this. They're trying to really help people. Like that's just the spirit in the air. So, all right, well, let's talk a little bit about the future for the care house. Obviously, it was interesting hearing you talk about the numbers because it sounds like, there's more abuse happening, but you're saying no, more people are getting help is the thing. Obviously, you're helping kids, but let's talk about what in the future. How do we stop some of this abuse?
Well, I mean, think about what we're doing right now. We're talking about human trafficking, and talking about things that we wouldn't have talked about 10 years ago. People are not putting up with it. That's not what I want to say. Putting up with it is not the right word, but there used to be especially in the South, it was what happens in my house stays in my house, brushed under the rug. We're not going to talk about that. People are not putting up with that anymore. And that is what's so incredible. So the future of the care house is we're going to keep helping children. We're going to keep moving forward.
And that's the fruit of y'all's, of your the way you guys work is making that conversation accessible. That's so cool.
Because I would love it if I worked myself out of a job. I would love it if tomorrow, our prevention efforts have worked so well that there's no more abuse in South Carolina. But, until there's abuse, I'm still going to work in this field. And I work with, like I said, some amazing women who just care about these kids. Yeah. So yes, absolutely. We're that prevention, those conversations. We do a lot of trainings in the area. We talk a lot about and that's why we also work with families too. If there's a parent who maybe her daughter was sexually abused, we're going to absolutely give her therapy too, because she needs to be that supportive caregiver, and she's a secondary survivor. That's a very real thing. So that trauma that comes along with having something happen to your child when you couldn't control it. And then I think especially as social media and things like that get bigger, Snapchat and TikTok and all these things that kids can get away with doing things behind the scenes, we can have those conversations. We can certainly talk to parents about how do you manage something like that.
Yeah.
So absolutely. The bigger we are, the better, because then we just get to be out in the community even more, talking to people.
Well, I'm sold. Let's talk about how people can support what you guys do. As a fellow nonprofit, I know it can be rough, sometimes. But what is a good avenue of support for people, and how can they get more information about what you guys do at the Care House?
So the first place you can start is thecarehouse.com. And we have a donation page, of course, and we also have fundraising events. And our fundraisers are not big money makers for us. We do it because we want the community to be involved with who we are. We have something called a Capes for Kids Run. And that is a 5K, 10K in the spring. And then we also have Toss and Taste, which is in the fall. It's chili cook-off, cornhole, and then there's also like a raffle. So we just want the community to come out and know who we are, because things like something as simple as the word house in our name, people think that the kids stay here. Right. So if I can get somebody to come to a Care House event, I can say, no, actually, here's what we do. Then I've got them, wanting to come take a tour. And I would love to give you guys a tour. I love people to come and see what we're doing. But yeah, absolutely. We love like donations and stuff. But my big thing is I need people to see where their money is going and how we're using it. So, something as simple as a $15 donation. Every single child that comes to us gets snack and juice before they leave, because we don't know when their next meal will be. $15 buys snacks for children all week long. That may not seem like a whole lot to one person, but that's a lot to us, and it's a lot to these children. Well,
Sarah, I've only been to the Care House once, and like I said, I was sort of ignorant to what was going on, and it was very eye-opening for me. Exciting that there's such a serious group of people who are so talented at this. But there's one kind of a star there at the Care House. Tell me a little bit about McGuffin.
All right. So McGuffey is our four-legged employee. He works 40 hours a week just like we do, but he is actually a full-service dog. We call him a facility dog. And he came from an organization called Canine Companions for Independence. We got a great grant in order to pay for his training. He goes through about 18 months of training, and then he goes and lives as a puppy. He goes through 18 months of training and then goes through 6 months of like hardcore training at the facility in Florida. But we were able to get him. He sits with the children when they're doing forensic interviews or in therapy or even in their medical exams. So they're telling these horrific stories of abuse. You've got this sweet little lab sitting on their lap. And he knows over 40 commands. So he could be a full service dog for someone. He turns off lights, he can close doors and things like that. But one of the things he does that we taught him, he gets juice out of the refrigerator for the kids. So
that will bring down some walls, huh? When you see a dog bringing some juice.
But he is therapy for the staff too.
Yeah.
Last October was one of our more stressful months, and he would go from office to office and sit in the office for a little while and go to the next office, almost like it was part of his job. And
does he sense that, you think?
I think he does, because he has a command called visit, and that's him putting his head on the child's lap. And so if he kind of senses some anxiety, then he will just go ahead and put his head on the lap, because that dog loves some pets too, though. But he also has a really cool command that, like, let's say that we have an autistic child that's maybe coming in and having a meltdown. He has a deep pressure command where he will get on top of them and help calm them down.
Oh, wow.
So he, like I said, full service dog. He can be, and a lot of veterans use this company, this organization. We're so fortunate to have him. He's wonderful.
And all dogs are great, but there's something about his eyes, and that's the thing I noticed when I was there. I was like, it's arresting. He's just a special dog. Well, so glad that McGuffey's around for sure. Let's talking about some of the commands. Let's dig a little deeper into the therapy. You said there's 5 types of therapy that you guys do. Let's talk about that.
So all of our therapy, like I mentioned, is evidence-based. So, and we use a lot of acronyms, but it's basically trauma-focused behavioral cognitive therapy, TFCBT. Can't believe I remember that the first time. But so that's our main one that we do, and that's basically what it is we're working on those behaviors, those trauma backgrounds. But one of the therapies that we offer is really cool. It's called PCIT, or Parent-Child Interaction Therapy.
Okay.
And so our executive director, Meg Temple, she's actually the one that does it. She's the only therapist that's certified for it. But so she is in a room where the child cannot see her, and the parent or the caregiver has an earpiece, and she has a microphone, and she's watching the family interact. And she is working on maybe behavioral issues. So the parent and the child are interacting in the room together, playing with toys and things like that. And she's got them in the earpiece saying, that was some really great labeled praising you just gave. So let's work on something else. And she kind of coaches both the parent and the child. And it is extremely successful, but it only is for children like 3 to 7. So all of our therapy is very specific. It's very scientific. And so, yes, our therapy is pretty incredible.
All right. So let's go up the chain a little bit. You said this is a national organization?
So it's a national model, the child advocacy model, but we are actually a subsidiary of Hope Health. And that's why we have that awesome partnership with Dr. Foxworth. We can use his pediatric skills, and the children that come to the pediatric office, they don't ever have to go into the general population of Hope Health. We have a door that, so there's never a confidentiality breach or anything like that. But we are a subsidiary of Hope Health, but we do our own fundraising. We have our own board. We get to be in their building and then have this awesome partnership with them. But there are multiple CACs around the state and around the country. Just our national kind of headquarters, I guess you could say. one that sends us all the grants and all the,
Right,
the emails
right.
every week are coming from Huntsville, Alabama. You asked earlier about how hard is it to work where I work. And the supervisors that I work for, they pay so close attention to us. For example, Meg Temple, she wears so many hats. She's managing our board. She's executive director, so she's doing the fundraising. She's doing all of that. But then she's also seeing clients. And I know she has her own stuff going on, but every month she gives me at least an hour of her time, and we talk face-to-face or one-on-one. And the other day she called me and she said, how are you doing? I said, well, you know, Meg, I'm a little stressed. She's like, I can see that. Let's talk about what we need to take off your plate. And I don't know of any bosses that would do that, you know, especially in the nonprofit world. You're working in such a small place, and everybody's got to pull their weight and probably do more than their weight.
Yeah.
And same thing with my direct supervisor. She meets with me once a month, and she's got her own stuff going on. She's working with the family. She's working with the children. And she sits down with me and is like, you're working too much. I just saw that you worked on Saturday. You're taking 4 hours off this week.
Wow.
And like, I couldn't ask for anything more, especially all this COVID stuff that has happened. They are checking in with us twice a week. We all meet on Zoom so we can all see each other's faces.
Right.
It's just, the people that I work for and work with are truly incredible. I don't think I could ever find people like this ever again.
Hopefully you won't have to, right? We're going to keep you here.
Yes,
We're gonna hang on to
absolutely.
you. Well, Sarah, I just want to say thank you so much for being here today. It sounds like the Care House as an organization here in Florence is healthy. And that's a beautiful thing. And that sounds like what you're trying to do for your clients, but also it's providing what this video series is about is a unity for the community.
Yeah.
And so thank you for doing that. Thank you for what your heart is behind that. Like I said, I think you're in the right job.
Oh, thank you.
So we appreciate you and thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you for doing this. The community needs things like this. So it means so much to us that you're putting this out there, but it's going to help me find things in the community that I didn't even know about. So it means a lot. So thank you.
Thanks again to Sarah Sweeney for sharing her story and for being a true advocate for the Florence community. Take some time to check out the Care House and the work they're doing. We've provided a link to their website and to their Facebook page as well. Thanks for watching Faces of Florence today, and be sure to check back every Tuesday for a brand new episode. My name is Kevin Smith, and this has been a Radio Free production.